I call the member for Dawson.
Well, thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker. I rise to speak to this motion by the member for Melbourne this morning, and in doing so question the motives behind this proposed Malaysian deal for asylum seekers, and also on a question the outcomes. This government's border protection frenzy has become excruciating to watch. It's like a cross between a bizarre episode of The Amazing Race and a chicken with its head cut off at the moment. There's stark similarities with that reality TV program. Just like The Amazing Race, this government jet sets its policy from one country to the next. We've seen the bungled attempt at using East Timor. We've seen Manus Island and PNG brought into the equation very briefly. Then we've jumped on a jet to see if Malaysia could help get this Labor government's border protection policies right. Then Thailand and the South Sea Islands have chimed in, wanting a piece of the action. So bad for Australia was that proposed deal for Malaysia. The key difference, Mr Deputy Speaker, is that contestants on The Amazing Race don't know when they're going to finish, and it's not in Malaysia. The Malaysian deal is not a solution. Manus Island was not a solution. East Timor was not a solution. What we are seeing in Australian detention centres is not the solution. They are all just carriages on this train wreck that is the government's avoidance of the real solution to border protection. The Australian people know what the solution looks like. They have seen it. They've seen the Howard government effectively control our borders and achieve results. I believe, Mr Deputy Speaker, that if it ain't broke, then don't fix it. Unfortunately, that's not this government's approach to this policy. They tried to fix the perfectly working solution and have been running around like headless chooks ever since in a desperate bid to find another solution that doesn't look like the old one. Because they can't go back to the solution that worked, Mr Deputy Speaker. That would be to admit that they got it wrong. If a real deal with Malaysia ever eventuates, and there is not yet a deal according to Malaysia, it will be one of the greatest injustices ever thrust upon the Australian people and the asylum seekers at the centre of this melee. To pack up the asylum seekers and transport them off to a country that not only allows but regularly practices caning contravenes the government's own stance. Malaysia is not a signatory to the UN Convention of Refugees. Even if a caning ban was written into this alleged agreement, that would be no guarantee, because caning is permissible under local laws in Malaysia. The PM cannot guarantee that asylum seekers would not be caned, mistreated or even tortured in Malaysia. She cannot make that guarantee. She might promise, but we've seen how much a promise from the Prime Minister is worth with the carbon tax. With a processing centre at Nauru, on the other hand, the Australian government can make that guarantee. Nauru may not be a signatory to the UN Convention of Refugees, but it is willing to be. And unlike Malaysia, it is a signatory to the Convention Against Torture and the International Covenant of Civic and Political Rights. The solution was working at Nauru. The question is, why will the Prime Minister not pick up the phone to the President of Nauru? Well, the answer to that is very simple, because that would be an admission that this government got it wrong. It's been a wrong call on East Timor. It's been a wrong call on Manus Island. It's been a wrong call on Malaysia, unless, of course, you're on the Malaysian end of the deal. That's a deal of a lifetime. All Malaysia has to do is take in 800 asylum seekers from Australia and they can offload 4,000 of theirs. It's a great solution for Malaysia. What's more, the Australian government has kindly offered to pay for the whole deal. That's even a better solution for Malaysia. But for Australia, it's a deal that stinks. It's a deal that's going to cost us an additional $1.7 billion, according to the budget papers. Malaysia is still holding the cards because the Prime Minister is desperate to find some sort of solution. And Malaysia will be holding all the aces in this deal. They will pick and choose which 800 asylum seekers that they take in. They will pick and choose which 4,000 they send. Our current detention centres are in a mess. We've got violent riots, a cost blowout of more than $3 billion, a detention population at record levels, more than 60% of detainees having been there for more than 6 months, and the average time spent in detention increasing from 61 days to more than 170 in the past 3 years. This is a government desperate for a deal.
The time allocated for this debate has expired.